You think you're torn between two hard choices? No. The truth is, you're avoiding becoming the stronger version of yourself. Stop lying to yourself. Stop calling your delay careful thinking. You don't lack time, you lack courage. And while you hesitate, the world keeps moving forward without waiting for anyone. This isn't a fluffy motivational video. It's a wake-up call for those who've gotten too comfortable with their own weakness. We're not here to talk about how to feel better. We're here to talk about how to do what's right, even when you're scared. If you've ever felt paralyzed in front of a major decision, watch this video to the end. Because maybe, for the first time, you'll finally see the real reason you've been stuck for years. Most of the worst decisions men make in life come from one common mistake: letting emotion take the wheel. When you say, "I need more time to think," it's rarely because you don't know what to do. It's because you don't like how it feels to do it. You're waiting until you feel ready. But the thing you're waiting for is never coming. Because emotion isn't a compass for right or wrong. It's messy, unstable, and it'll betray you at the exact moment you need clarity most. Modern weakness isn't about ignorance. It's about putting too much weight on feelings. You already know what's right. You know what needs to be done. But because it's hard, because it makes you anxious, because it demands sacrifice, you stall. You make excuses. You listen to your heart. And then you lose your way. Emotion is a useful tool for self-awareness, but it's a terrible advisor for decision-making. You don't need to feel okay to do the right thing. You just need enough courage to do it while you're still afraid. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor ruling an entire empire, reminded himself each morning that he would encounter betrayal, stupidity, and selfishness. He didn't romanticize reality. He didn't let himself fall into the illusion that the world would cater to his feelings. Because he knew, emotions come and go, but duty and principle stay the same. If you want to live a life of value, you cannot allow emotions to dictate your decisions, especially in moments of chaos. The reason you can't decide isn't always because the issue is too complex. It's often because you're too attached to a softer version of yourself. You're afraid of hurting someone, of losing your image, of falling flat. But Stoicism doesn't teach you to avoid pain. It teaches you to take responsibility, even if it means paying the price for being decisive. Delay doesn't make the decision easier. It just prolongs the pain and multiplies the consequences. Your emotions deserve to be acknowledged, but they don't get to lead. You can be scared, uncertain, uneasy, but you still have to choose. And when you act based on what's right, not what's easy, you build a character that's trustworthy, a core that doesn't shake. That's how you step out of the emotional fog and into the domain of a man with weight. You don't need to wait for your emotions to give permission. We don't act because we feel ready. We act because it's the right thing to do. And that is the true definition of freedom. If you feel the positive energy, don't forget to like this video and share a meaningful comment. The truth is, you will never be certain how things will turn out. You can plan, calculate risks, imagine a dozen scenarios, but reality is always messier than you expect. And because you crave certainty, you never actually do anything meaningful. You call it being cautious. But it's not. It's fear, dressed up as logic. You think you need more information, more time, more advice? No, you just don't want to feel the weight of owning a result that doesn't go your way. You're scared of the consequences because you're scared of having to say, "I was wrong." But that's the real difference between the strong and the weak. The weak wait until everything is clear before they act and end up doing nothing. The strong act even in the fog because they understand that inaction is the bigger risk. Epictetus once said, "You don't control what happens, you control how you respond." And that begins by accepting the outcome isn't everything. Responsibility is what defines who you are. I've met men who were smart, capable, and had every condition for success, yet they stayed stuck for years simply because they were afraid of making the wrong choice. They buried their lives in plans that never saw the light of day. They waited for the perfect moment, but that moment only exists in their imagination. In the end, they didn't live, they just delayed dying. Yes, you might fail, you might lose money, you might lose friends, you might get humiliated. So what? It'll hurt, but that's where you learn. That's where you grow. That's how you sharpen your vision and strengthen your spine. That's the price of becoming something greater. And if you're not willing to pay it, you don't deserve the reward. Stop wasting energy fearing what hasn't happened. Use it to control what you can. Action. Not because you're sure you'll win, but because you refuse to stand still. Worrying about consequences isn't a sign of intelligence, it's a sign of insecurity. And taking action in spite of fear is the only thing that turns an average man into someone worth respecting. You don't know what lies ahead, but you do know this. If you keep letting fear run the show, you'll never get there. And that's the real tragedy. Not failure, but never starting at all. The biggest trap of the century isn't a lack of opportunity, it's having too much. Every day you're bombarded with hundreds of choices, thousands of invitations, and millions of messages telling you can be anyone, do anything. Sounds like freedom, but in reality, it's killing your ability to act. You don't know what to choose, not because you're stupid, but because you have no principles to guide you. Modern men often confuse having options with being in control of their lives. The truth is the opposite. When you have no principles, your choices own you. You don't live, you just react. A drinking invite, a new email, a message from an ex, and you're swept away like trash in a whirlpool. You think you're open-minded, but really, you're just drifting aimlessly. Seneca once wrote, "If you don't know where you're going, no wind is favorable." That's never been more true than today. You don't need one more option. You need to know what's right, what matters, and what's non-negotiable, regardless of the circumstances. That's a principle. And it's your principles that allow you to make decisions when everything else is chaos. Don't confuse principles with rigidity. The stubborn are inflexible. The principled are adaptable in method, but unshakable in values. You can change the route, but not the destination. When you have principles, every choice becomes clearer. You don't waste hours debating because you already know what's worth it. And if you're constantly needing more time to think, maybe what you're really lacking is a moral core. What's truly terrifying isn't making the wrong choice, it's letting someone else make the choice for you. At that point, you're no longer living. You're a puppet, and puppets have no dignity. Most men don't fail because they make mistakes. They fail because they're too afraid to make one in the first place. They don't collapse from errors. They're paralyzed by the fear of error. And that fear is killing the willpower of an entire generation. How many times have you stood before a decision, knowing damn well what needed to be done, only to back off because you were scared it wouldn't turn out the way you hoped? How many times have you shut down a project, walked away from a relationship, or passed on an opportunity, not because it wasn't right, but because you didn't want to be the one responsible if it fell apart? Don't lie to yourself. Don't call it thinking it through. It's fear. It's avoidance. It's the survival instinct of a child trapped in a man's body. But a grown man knows the truth. Making mistakes isn't shameful. Running from them is. You weren't born to be right all the time. You were born to learn, to take hits, to rise after failure with thicker skin and a sharper mind. Stoicism never taught perfection. It taught power through trials. And no trial is real if it doesn't carry the risk of getting it wrong. The truth is you will mess up, you will fail. But you have to choose. Fail actively or live a dull life because you were too afraid to try. A man of dignity isn't one who's always right. He's one who's ready to fix his mistakes. That's real discipline. Staring down your own screw-ups, making no excuses, pointing no fingers, and still moving forward. The fear of mistakes keeps you clinging to the image of "I've got it all together" instead of the path of real growth. And you cannot evolve if you're always protecting the ego that's terrified of taking a hit. But if you're willing to drop that ego, you'll see something powerful. Mistakes don't weaken you, they make you dangerous. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you find this video helpful. It's the best way to support me in creating more valuable content. You can take a step back, sit down, write out every option that's spinning your head in circles. But no matter what you do, the clock's still ticking. Time doesn't care that you're weighing things carefully. It doesn't freeze so you can catch up. It just keeps sweeping away every opportunity you once had until the only thing left is regret. Death doesn't knock on your door and ask, "Are you ready?" It comes like a silent hitman while you're still flipping through choices you haven't had the guts to make. And if you think you still have time, look back at the months, the years that have already slipped by. How many times did you promise yourself to start next week, next month, when things calm down? Guess what? That moment of stability never shows up because the chaos isn't out there. It's in you. The man who won't act today is the man who will repeat himself for the next 10 years. Not because he doesn't have dreams, but because he doesn't have the balls to pay the price. Procrastination isn't deep thinking. It's death, neatly packaged in the wrapping of good intentions. You delay not because you need more clarity, but because you don't want the responsibility. You don't want to fail, or feel pain, or look foolish. But if the price of action is risk, the price of delay is guaranteed self-loss. Stoicism teaches, act not when it's comfortable, but when you know what's right. No one feels ready before the leap. But the people who create change, they jump. They don't need certainty of success. They just need certainty that staying still would betray the values they claim to live by. You might think you're waiting for the right moment. You're not. You're losing hour after hour, minute after minute, wasting the very chances you once begged for. And the most brutal truth? One day, you won't have a little more time to think. All that'll be left is this. You knew what you should have done, but you didn't do it, and now it's too late. You can take a step back, sit down, write out every option that's spinning your head in circles. But no matter what you do, the clock's still ticking. Time doesn't care that you're weighing things carefully. It doesn't freeze so you can catch up. It just keeps sweeping away every opportunity you once had until the only thing left is regret. Death doesn't knock on your door and ask, "Are you ready?" It comes like a silent hitman while you're still flipping through choices you haven't had the guts to make. And if you think you still have time, look back at the months, the years that have already slipped by. How many times did you promise yourself to start next week, next month, when things calm down? Guess what? That moment of stability never shows up because the chaos isn't out there. It's in you. The man who won't act today is the man who will repeat himself for the next 10 years. Not because he doesn't have dreams, but because he doesn't have the balls to pay the price. Procrastination isn't deep thinking. It's death, neatly packaged in the wrapping of good intentions. You delay not because you need more clarity, but because you don't want the responsibility. You don't want to fail, or feel pain, or look foolish. But if the price of action is risk, the price of delay is guaranteed self-loss. Stoicism teaches, act not when it's comfortable, but when you know what's right. No one feels ready before the leap. But the people who create change, they jump. They don't need certainty of success. They just need certainty that staying still would betray the values they claim to live by. You might think you're waiting for the right moment. You're not. You're losing hour after hour, minute after minute, wasting the very chances you once begged for. And the most brutal truth? One day, you won't have a little more time to think. All that'll be left is this. You knew what you should have done, but you didn't do it, and now it's too late. It's not that you don't know what to choose. It's that you don't want to let go of a version of yourself that feels familiar. Every hard decision requires sacrifice, and that's what paralyzes you. You know the right choice, but to take it, you'll have to step out of the comfort shell you've lived in for too long. The shell of comfort, of habits, of an identity you've clung to so tightly that you can't imagine anything outside of it. You were once the helpful guy, so now you can't say no when you're being used. You were once good at X, so you're scared to pivot towards something where you're nobody. You were the nice one, so you fear that one selfish decision will make people stop loving you. So you stay still, not because you're stupid, but because you're scared to lose the image you've invested so much in maintaining. Here's the truth no one wants to hear. You'll never evolve until you're willing to kill the old version of yourself. All real growth is bloody with the death of your former ego. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Constantly remind yourself, dying each day is the only way to truly live." And that doesn't just apply to physical life. It applies to your identity, your habits, the mask you wear. The reason a decision feels impossible isn't because it's complex. It's because it threatens your current self. It demands that you let go. It forces you to accept that you might have to start from zero, that you'll no longer be the talented one, the kind one, the safe one you've always seen yourself as. And that terrifies you. But you know what's worse? Living a life you yourself don't even respect. If you want to rise to a higher peak, you must be willing to bury your old self at the foot of the mountain. No one climbs while clinging to all their old baggage. Every step forward requires a little less weight. Every right decision is a betrayal of comfort in favor of growth. So the next time you say a decision feels too hard, stop and ask yourself, what am I really afraid of? Am I scared of failing? Or just scared of no longer being the pleasant version of me I've always projected? Let that version die, so the man worth respecting can be born. Strong men aren't fearless. They just don't let themselves make decisions while panicking, because they know a chaotic mind doesn't make the right call. It just looks for the fastest escape. And decisions made out of desperation usually lead you straight into the next disaster. Have you ever panicked and made a choice in a moment of mental chaos? Of course you have. We all have. You called your ex, quit a valuable job, signed a deal you should have walked away from, all because you couldn't handle the fear, the loss of control. You acted just to feel better, not to actually solve the problem the right way. But here's where Stoicism stands apart from every other philosophy. It doesn't care about how you feel in the moment. It cares about what principles you return to after the storm. Epictetus once said, "When the ship is tossed, the wise man doesn't row harder. He ties things down, watches, and waits for calm." Same with your mind. When it's shaking, don't decide. Pause. Write it out. Look at the situation like you're advising a friend. Detach from your emotional chaos and return to logic. We like to believe that the emotions we feel in panic are somehow deeper, more real. They're not. That's animal instinct, not your truth. It's short-term survival mode, not your moral compass. You are not the panic. You are what you choose to do after it passes. Remember, wise action doesn't come from a panicked head. It comes from the silence after you've gained perspective. And sometimes, the right move isn't the fast one. It's the slow, steady, deliberate one. You don't owe anyone an immediate reaction. You can delay. You can say, "Not yet." You can breathe, write, sit down, drink water, then choose. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you dangerous. Because a man who controls his reactions is a man who can't be manipulated. But if everyone can make you react emotionally, you're no different than a puppet. So next time you feel chaotic, angry, frustrated, or hopeless, don't trust yourself. Don't decide. Stop. And remember, emotion is not the enemy, but it is not the commander. Let reason speak when the storm has passed. Modern society tells you, start when you feel confident. But here's the truth. If you wait for confidence, you'll never do anything meaningful. Confidence doesn't show up before the action. It's the result of the action. Waiting to feel ready is why millions of men waste their lives in the comfort zone. You don't need confidence to walk away from a toxic relationship. You need courage. You don't need confidence to start over after failure. You need courage. You don't need confidence to chase a dream the world mocks. You just need the guts to stop caring what they think. Courage isn't acting without fear. Courage is acting while you're afraid. And men don't grow by avoiding fear. They grow by walking straight through it. The men you admire, Marcus Aurelius, Viktor Frankl, the fathers who quietly sacrificed, they didn't wait for certainty. They didn't wait for applause. They chose what was right, knowing it would cost them, and that's exactly why they earned respect. You say you're not skilled enough, don't have enough resources, not ready? So what? Who said you have to be complete before you're allowed to start? What you need is a commitment to become skilled through action. Stoicism doesn't hand over power to your feelings, it hands it to your will. You act not because you feel good, but because it's worth doing. The truth is, confidence is a luxury. Courage is the necessity, and courage comes from choosing to live by principle, even when your knees are shaking. Courage comes from doing what's right, even when your mind is screaming, run. No one sees that, no one claps, but you know, and from that moment, you respect yourself. The world will keep telling you, love yourself more. Wait until it feels right. Don't push yourself too hard. But if you want to live like a real man, you'll have to push yourself. You'll have to act inside the fear, and you'll have to choose when there's zero guarantee that you'll win. In the end, life doesn't reward the ones who wait, it rewards the ones who take the hit. No one's coming to say, it's the perfect time now, go. No, you have to look the chaos in the face and move forward. Not with confidence, but with uncompromising courage. A man isn't measured by his words, his ideas, or passing emotions. He's measured by his ability to act when everything is against him. These 9 Stoic principles aren't feel-good advice, they're a wake-up call. They're not meant to comfort you, they're meant to confront you with the truth. You are your greatest obstacle. You don't need more inspiration. You need discipline. You don't need anyone's approval. You need self-respect. You don't need to feel ready. You need to move, even when your heart is pounding. This world won't pause just because you're hesitating. It will either crush you or forge you, depending on whether you choose or not. So stop waiting. Choose. Act. Repeat. Not because you're sure you'll win, but because it's the only way to become the kind of man even you can respect. Thank you for being here. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, turn on notifications, and like this video. Don't forget to leave a comment so we can spread positivity together.